everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley and today I'm starting a reading vlog reading new horror books. I am so excited for this video. I've been sitting on these books. I have been dying to read them, but I've been trying to finish other videos first, and I really just wanted to get to the point where I could start this one because I'm so excited for these new horror books and to read them with you all. I'm still waiting for one to come in that doesn't get released for another week or so, but I just can't wait any longer. We're gonna get started with the books I have, and then when that one comes in, it'll be a nice happy time, and then we'll just add that one to the reading vlog as well. But in this video, I'm going to be reading some of the new exciting horror books that have recently been released. I actually asked all of you in the community section of YouTube to let me know which new horror releases you are most excited for and that you wanted to hear me talk about in a reading vlog. And so I'm going with your top 3 picks for what you selected, and we're going to be reading these books together, and I'm so excited. So the first book that had the most amount of votes, you guys overwhelmingly wanted me to read this book, is The Book of Accidents by Chuck Wendig. All I know about this story is that it is a haunted house story. There's something about a son and a father, and there's some kind of speculative / sci-fi element to the story. That's all I've heard about it. I don't want to read the synopsis. I just want to go into it. I'm excited. I've heard great things about it. I feel like everyone's recommending this for October. It is a very big book. I'm pretty sure it's over 500 pages, or it's right at 500 pages. Usually I'd be intimidated by something like this, but I've heard so many people talk about it and say it is so good, and so I'm so excited to read it. I also just love this cover, so I really hope I love it because I would love to display this cover, and even if I don't love it, I might just display this cover on my bookshelf anyway because I really like the vibe of it. The next most popular book that you guys wanted me to read is My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. I am also just so excited for this one. I have really loved Stephen Graham Jones stuff in the past, and this is another one I don't even know what it's about. I saw it was coming out like a year ago and I just added it to my TBR. I said I don't need the synopsis, I don't need to know, I will just read it if Stephen Graham Jones is writing it. I think from what I have heard about it so far, you have a teenage girl who is super obsessed with horror movies, and I think this might be a slasher, but I'm not sure. So don't hold me to that. I'll tell you more about it once I start reading. And then the third most popular book that you wanted me to read is Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Call. Again, I don't really know what this book is about. This could be a disaster because I really have been finding I do need to read the synopsis to know if I'm gonna like books, which like makes sense, but previously I didn't do that, and now I'm picky, and so I'm like, ooh, I should read the synopsis before. So we're just going into all these books with minimal information, hoping for the best, but if it becomes a train wreck, at least it'll be a train wreck we're on together. All I know about this, the only kind of buzzwords I've heard is it has something to do with a marriage. It's got gothic vibes. I think the cover looks absolutely terrifying, and I think it's a shorter book, but it doesn't come out until October 19th, and I'm starting this on October 10th, so it's still gonna be another week or so before it even gets delivered. So that'll be something to look forward to, but I've got a lot of pages to keep me busy for the next 9 days, so I figured we could go ahead and get started. As for which one I'm going to begin with, I typically like to start with the shortest book, so I feel like I'm accomplishing something in the reading vlog and making progress, but I think we're just gonna go with the longest one. I think we're just gonna start with The Book of Accidents and jump on in to this chunky boy because I am just dying to read it. Everyone's saying such good thing. I'm so intrigued. I just want to know what happens, and if I really love it, I'll be able to get through it fast enough anyway that it's not going to feel like this really long book. So we're gonna hope for the best. We're gonna hope this reading vlog goes well. It's really gonna be a surprise journey for everyone involved. But yeah, let's do it. I'm gonna get started with this book. I'm gonna let you know how I'm feeling about it after I read 50, 100 pages, whatever feels like a good stopping point. I will check in with you then. It is the next day and I was able to read a bit of The Book of Accidents. I got to page 58, the start of chapter 9, and so I wanted to update you. I'm also getting ready to make a bowl of cereal because I'm hungry. So you're currently in my kitchen cabinet and I'm gonna make some cereal and eat some cereal while I tell you about this book. And if you're wondering what cereal, obviously there is only one answer. I am really enjoying this book a lot. I really like the way that it's written. I just like the tone and the style of it. The chapters are really, really short. And it's also a little bit gimmicky with the way each chapter begins with a little bit of a phrase like, this is, I don't know the characters' names, Nathan, like, this is Nathan. Nathan's a 15-year-old boy who blah, 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 blah. And then introducing Maddie. And it's like, this is Maddie. And then there's a house and it's like, this is the house. And so I think that is a really fun, just little style. But so far, I can't really tell too much. Like, I don't fully understand what the story is going to be. Right now it is about this guy who grew up with an abusive father. His name, is he Nathan or is that the kid? Yeah, he's Nathan. He goes by Nate. And so long ago he grew up with an abusive dad, and now his dad is dying and offering to let him like buy the house for $1. He decides to do that with his wife Maddie and their son Oliver. Yes, Oliver, who is 15 years old, and he is a very interesting character himself as well. And at first they're really hesitant to do it, or at least the guy is, because he really has bad memories there. He thinks his dad's probably trying to like ruin his life somehow with taxes to do with it or whatever, but their son's been having a really hard time. It's actually based in Pennsylvania, and it starts and they live in Philly, which like is so weird because I just moved to Philly a couple months ago, and ever since I moved here I keep picking up all these books that are set in Pennsylvania, and I had no idea they were set in Pennsylvania, but this one specifically is set in Philly as well in the beginning, which is so bizarre to me. Obviously it's a big city, but I've never read a single other book that was set in Philly that I knew of or that I noticed, and I just never really knew like a lot of books were set in Pennsylvania either, and then I keep picking up all these books set in Pennsylvania. Super strange. Anywho, their son's been having a hard time in the city because he's extremely empathetic, and so being around a lot of people is just tough for him. He's so empathetic that he like feels people's anger and like can sense their auras and stuff, it seems like, so feel like there's something supernatural going on with him. And so they do decide to move to the house, and they've just gotten there and they're settling in. And I really love stories that follow families moving to houses, especially when they're creepy houses. I really just love a haunted story. I don't know if it's gonna be a haunted house, but I love like just watching a family settle in somewhere new. Something about that just makes a really good horror story to me, because it is such a hard thing to go through and such a hard transitional period, and horror that like really captures human psychological elements I really enjoy, and so I feel like it's gonna be like that. This is getting kind of soggy, so I'm gonna finish eating this and then I'll continue in a second. Okay, had to finish that before it got soggy or it wasn't going to be good. But now I can hold the book up too. The reason I'm like, oh, I don't know where the story's going to go is because of the prologues that open this. There's two different prologues. One of them is a serial killer who is being put on death row, and you like are with him for a minute as he is put in the electric chair, and he's really obsessed with numbers, and I'm just like, okay, who is this? How are they going to fold into the story? And the second prologue is this little boy being found in the woods. This man's hunting in the woods, and he stumbles across this little boy who's like covered in blood, and so he tries to help him. But then the little boy pulls out a pickaxe or something, and I think he murders that guy. So I'm like, who are these people? Who's a serial killer? Who's the little boy? Who is that man? What's the story going on here? I don't know. There's something about like a mining incident that happened in Pennsylvania that's being brought up in the story as well, and like supernatural forces in this tunnel. And so I think this is going to be a story where there's just like a dark force in the town that ends up affecting people. Not really sure. No idea where it's going to go, but so far I'm enjoying every single element of it. I really think the writing is pretty strong. I'm really pulled into the story, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. It is now Thursday, and I don't remember when I started filming this vlog, but it feels like I've been reading this book for a very long time, but I just don't usually read books this long, so I'm just not used to it taking this many days to get through a book, but I am still really enjoying it. I also have no idea if you can tell, but I did cut my hair last night. I just impulsively was like, it's time to take about 5 more inches off, so I don't know if you can see, but it is quite short now. It ends just like right here if it's in frame. I have no idea. But anywho, I'm not used to reading books this long, and so I'm like, how many times have I updated on this book? How many times should I update on this book? Like, it's just taking forever. But I am now finally slightly over halfway there. I'm on page 300-ish, I think, 301, and it is part 5 of the book that I just started. So I still have quite a ways to go, but honestly, I feel like I'm only 1 or 2 reading sessions away from completing this book. And even though I'm saying it's taking a long time, it is such a fast read, especially for horror, and especially for what I kind of thought I was getting myself into, with this going to be some like complex, ridiculous story about alternate realities and things that was going to be way overwritten. This is so easy to read. I love this writing style. This is one of my favorite writing styles I've read in a horror book, and it very much aligns with the type of horror movies I like, because I really like dark comedy, or like just horror movies that in a way don't take themselves too seriously, or they allow times for the funny moments or the funny tone. That is just what works really well for me, and that is what this book has. It's just written the right amount with the right amount of tone. It's like making fun of itself a little bit, and each chapter begins with a title, not just a chapter number, and they're funny. Like, the titles that he chooses for each chapter ends up being funny in a way, and I'm just really having a lot of fun with it. I honestly have no complaints other than it is really long, but it's not feeling too dragged out yet. The beginning did feel a little bit slow, but it felt appropriate for the way we were building up the story, getting to know the family, moving them to a new place, getting settled in the area, getting to introduce a cast of characters. I'm just really liking this book, and I'm kind of surprised. I don't know why. I was just like, it's so hyped, but maybe it won't be for me. I thought it was going to be kind of like Stephen King, and this does feel like an author who read and loved Stephen King. It definitely gives me a little bit of Stephen King vibes, but all the things I hate about Stephen King's writing, this is none of that. So I'm really liking this. As far as where the story is going, I honestly have no idea. I kind of just got to a place recently where it took a bit of a weird turn and got into that like alternate reality part of the book. It takes about half of the book before you get to where you really start piecing things together and understanding who certain characters are and how they relate to the story. Start to see a vision of where we're going, but I'm honestly like, this book could go anywhere. It's just gonna surprise me. I have no expectations. I don't know. I'm just along for the ride this book is taking me on. So yeah, at this point, I think I'm just gonna try to finish the last 200 pages, which might sound like a lot, but I'm so serious. Like, it goes by so fast. I read like 100 pages in a sitting easily, and that's not always easy for me to do, especially with horror sometimes. But I'm gonna try to finish the rest of this book either probably over the next 2 days if I give myself like 100 pages a day, and then I'll fill you in with where I land on rating and final thoughts. So I'll see you in a couple days. Hello, it is now Saturday, and I did finish the Book of Accidents last night, so it did only take me 2 more days and just a couple more reading sessions to get through the rest of this, and I did really enjoy this book. My only complaint with the book is I do feel like it was a little longer than it needed to be. I really think we could have cut out some of the middle stuff. It felt a little bit repetitive and a little bit stretched out, and like it didn't really need to be that long. And then the ending, I feel like I was wanting more closure, and that's the part that I wanted to see stretched out a little more and have a little bit more happen there. So I think the pacing could have been a little bit better, but overall I did really enjoy this book. I think I'm gonna give it 4 stars because of that, because I do feel like it was a little bit long, but I really enjoyed it. I liked the characters. I really liked the writing style a lot. The tone of it was just great. I also like how this book bites off these big concepts with like alternate realities and different dimensions and more sci-fi things going on, but it is still very accessible to read and doesn't overcomplicate things. Although I will say I felt like something about it didn't fully come together for me with the supernatural elements of the story. When it comes to some of the characters' motives and to some of the explanations of the supernatural things going on, I wasn't fully invested and bought in on all of that, especially with some of the more like antagonistic characters. I didn't understand their motives motives all the way, or I didn't fully buy into their motives and why they were so evil and what they were working towards or against. I understood on a surface level of like, I understand what the author was writing, but I just couldn't fully buy into it. It was a little bit of me having to just suspend my disbelief to get through all of it. But I don't read a lot of supernatural things. I tend to not gravitate towards supernatural horror writing because I typically do have that problem where it just gets cheesy or weird or I can't buy into it. But this was the most successful experience I've had with a supernatural horror so far, I think. So all in all, I would call it a success. I see what the hype is about. I see why people are loving this book, and I would definitely recommend it to others. I do think at the beginning of me talking about this book, I mentioned it as a haunted house story, and I would not consider this a haunted house story, so do not go into it expecting that. It is more of a haunted town story where there's just like weird, dark things going on in the small town that's affecting a lot of people, and they're trying to figure out what's going on and stop the dark forces. Still really good. Just didn't want you to think it was going to be this like haunted house ghost story when that is not what it is at all. So now I'm going to be picking up My Heart is a Chainsaw next. Nothing But Blackened Teeth is still not out yet. I don't have it yet, so I'm just going to keep going in order of the most popular and most voted for options. I did go ahead and start this book a little bit. I read the very first chapter, which is more of like a prologue. It's just a scene where like these two teens are going out to this lake at night where they shouldn't be, getting naked, doing things they shouldn't be doing, and then they get killed. So like the beginning of a horror movie type scene. Didn't really give me a sense of the story, but I will say just compared to other novel that I've read from Stephen Graham Jones, I read The Only Good Indians, and then everything else I've read from him has been his novellas. And I really enjoyed his novellas before, but I had trouble with The Only Good Indians because of the writing style of that being a bit overcomplicated and difficult to read. So far, this has been really accessible in that first chapter, but it isn't connected to, I mean, it's connected to the story because it's a part of the book, but it's not the main story you're following. It was just like a prologue type scene. So I want to get more into this book to see if I'm going to have that same experience that I did with The Only Good Indians. I have heard a little bit of negative reviews around this book for that kind of reason too, so I'm a little bit nervous about it. But so far, the prologue was okay, and I was able to fully understand it. It wasn't written in any kind of confusing way. I also read the synopsis of this book, so I do know what it is about now. We are following this teenager named Jade, who is a senior in high school, and she is obsessed with horror movies, especially like 80s horror movies. And in their town, she lives in Idaho. Is that it? Yeah. They live in this town called Proof Rock, which is 8,000 feet up a mountain in Idaho, which is right by this Indian lake. And there was a massacre 50 years ago at this lake. And now this summer, I don't really understand this part of the synopsis, so I don't know if this means a celebrity is coming to build a home on the mountain. Terra Nova, like, is that the celebrity's name? It must be. And then this summer, there is a celebrity coming to build a home on this land that is like a national forest area. And the rest of the synopsis is pretty ambiguous. It just says, that's not the only thing that's getting carved up though. This, Jade knows, is the start of a slasher. But what kind? Who's wearing the mask? Jade's got an encyclopedic recall of every horror movie on the shelf, but will that help her survive? So it doesn't really say what is going to happen, but for some reason, our main character, Jade, thinks this is the beginning of a slasher. I guess people are going to start dying. And there's also obviously going to be some social commentary around the occupation of the land and what is going on there. So I'm looking forward to just figuring out more about this book, getting more into it, and we'll see how it goes. I'll let you know once I actually read a little bit more of the story. Okay, so I've started My Heart is a Chainsaw. I am this far into it, which is page, I don't know, there's not a number on this page, there's not a number on that page, there's not a number on any of these pages. It's around page 85, I guess. I don't know why there's not numbers on these pages. There's like, part of the story is our main character like writing an essay, and on the ones in the essay it's a different font, and there's no numbers on the pages, so that's a little annoying. But yeah, I'm 85 pages into it, roughly, out of about 400 pages. And it's not going so hot. I'm strongly considering sitting this down. As soon as we got into the real part of the story, it was like back to that dense, confusing tangent style Stephen Graham Jones novel style writing that I saw in The Only Good Indians and that I heard people talk about being in this book. It's so weird that that prologue initial scene wasn't like that, but then as soon as we got into the story, it was like that. So truly, I just like his shorter stuff better. Like his novellas are so good, but then the novel length stuff, I just don't click with it as well, but I want to love it. But I'm also realizing I have no idea what the story is supposed to be about. I already had told you that I didn't read the synopsis going into this because I was just excited to see Stephen Graham Jones had a new book coming out. I thought the cover was cool. I was like, whatever, I'll read it. I'll be interested in it if Stephen Graham Jones is writing it. And then I started reading the book a little bit, and something happens really early on in the story that made me think, how is this happening? This feels like this should be the end of the story. How is this already happening in the beginning? If this is the beginning, where is the story going? And so I did read the synopsis, and the synopsis told me about nothing. It basically just says we're following this teenage girl who's obsessed with horror movies. Specifically, she's obsessed with slashers, and she lives in this town, and it seems like her town is becoming a slasher story, that people are going to start dying. But I can't tell if that's really going to happen or if this is just in her mind, because she projects her obsession over horrors and slashers on a lot of different things and just goes off in these long tangents about it. And so I don't know if this is going to be like a real slasher story or if this is going to be more about her turning something into something that is not. I really have no idea. I'm almost 100 pages in and it still feels like the story hasn't really started yet. So I don't know. I just feel like I want to set it down, and I never really set books down, so that would be very uncharacteristic of me, but I just feel like this is going to slow down my October reading so much, and I just want to read so much in October that I don't want this to slow me down. So I don't know, maybe I'll do this. I'll give it to page 100, because that's still like 15 pages away. And if I get to page 100 and anything changes and I'm interested in it, I'll keep reading and then we'll reevaluate at page 200. But if by page 100 I'm still feeling forced to pick the book up, then I'm just gonna go ahead and sit it down for now. I have an audiobook, so I've been listening to the audiobook a little bit too on Scribd, but it's not really helping. It's kind of hindering the process because I get kind of confused about what's happening because it's just written in such a style of these tangents that it's a little bit difficult to follow. So I'll read 15-ish more pages and I'll let you know if I'm gonna keep reading or not. But today is Tuesday, which means it's pub day, which means Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Khaw has made its way to my home, and it is so tiny and cute and terrifying all at the same time. So this also isn't helping because all I wanna do is pick this up because look how tiny it is. It's so short, I could read it so fast. I'm so interested in it, and this feels like the right choice. I'm also reading right now, this is not a horror book, but just in the midst of this vlog, I'm also reading The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling. This is the book that everybody's reading right now. It's a rom-com, like cozy romance story. It's kind of like Hocus Pocus, but they bang is how the author pitched this one. Erin Sterling is actually Rachel Hawkins, who wrote The Wife Upstairs. This is a pen name for their romance stuff, I guess. I'm really not liking this either. I'm about halfway through it. I'm listening to the audiobook for this one too at times. It's okay. It's just okay. It's just like cozy and fun, but it's just okay. I'm not really invested in the romance. I don't really care that much. It's kind of just feeling like watching a rom-com that's like a B tier rom-com. This is not a part of the blog, but I was just telling you this because I'm just kind of in a slump right now between not really loving that and then really not having a good time with this either. Reading has just not been super fun recently. So that's why I'm kind of like, I just want to pick this up and have fun. So maybe I'll do that. I don't know, we'll see. Next time you hear from me, I will either be reading My Heart is a Chainsaw or I will have gone rogue. We'll see. As the wise Miss Taylor Allison Swift would say, they say I did something bad, then why's it feel so good? I did read Nothing But Blackened Teeth. I didn't even try to read My Heart is a Chainsaw again. I just picked this up and I read it in 2 sittings because it's small and I wanted to treat myself. Yesterday was a bones day. I deserved it. And so I just read this entire book. Is this my new favorite horror novella? No. But did I have a good time with it? Yes, I did. As I was reading it, I was giving myself a hard time for giving myself a hard time. Like I just kept thinking, oh, is this good? Do I like this? Is this a 3-star? Is this a 4-star? And sometimes I find myself just like hyper analyzing books while I'm reading them. And I have to be like, please stop, just read the book, just enjoy the book. You don't have to hyperanalyze the book. It is okay. You don't have to think about if you're enjoying the book while you're reading the book. Just read the book. But also part of that is I couldn't get lost in this. Like I wasn't having such a good time that I didn't have to think about it. So where I landed with this is like a 4-star rating. I think it was a fun horror novella. It was definitely really creepy. I really liked the infusion of Japanese folklore in the story. It had me Googling the whole time to figure out what certain words meant or what certain imagery was supposed to be meaning or what it was. And so maybe that pulled me out of the story a little bit. So I think if I were to read this again, understanding the context of the full story that I know now, I think I would enjoy it even more. So that's why it's like a 4-star. I think it's definitely a lot of fun. Definitely really cool the way it was pieced together. I'm realizing now, I didn't tell you what this is about, I don't think. But I didn't really know. I just knew it had something to do with the wedding. So what the story is about is this group of friends / frenemies, there's some like contention between some of them, are going to this abandoned mansion. And the history of this mansion is that it's supposedly haunted because many years ago, this woman was going to get married there. Her groom never showed up, and she was so devastated that she said, "Bury me in the foundation of this house." And so they buried her alive, and she was saying that she was just gonna wait for him there. And she like haunts this place, and every year people sacrifice a human girl or woman to the house and also put them in the foundation of the house. So the house is like built on the foundation of all these women is the idea behind this. This group of people are going to this house to have a wedding between 2 of them, and then it's a couple of their friends. And the one's getting married, the girl is really into like haunted things. She said she's always wanted to get married in a haunted house her whole life. And so that's why they're doing this specifically. There's also this other character who's really funny named Lynn. And the whole time he's like, this is literally the beginning of a horror movie. We are the outcast. You're bisexual and I'm the funny one. I'm here for comic relief. We're for sure gonna die first. Like he was just a real delight in the story. And so I really enjoyed the characters and thought this was just a fun little quick story. It kind of felt like just watching an episode of an anthology or something where you know it's not going to end good, you know it's going to go by pretty quick, and the characters are kind of making light of it too, so it's a little bit cheeky, and I really like cheeky horror. So yeah, this wasn't like my new favorite horror novella. It's not the favorite horror novella I've ever read, but I definitely did enjoy it. I think it's good for spooky season, and it's definitely a good one to just pick up and read in 1 or 2 sittings because it goes by very, very quickly. And so that leaves me with my heart as a chainsaw and making a decision on what I'm going to do here. And I've been thinking about it, and no part of my body wants to continue reading this book, and so I'm not going to force it. That's very hard for me to do because I never, ever, I hardly ever DNF books, and so it doesn't come naturally to me. I feel such an obligation to read a book when I buy it, which I feel like is fair, but also I don't want to waste my time trying to force through a book that I'm not enjoying. I think I'm just going to sit it down. Maybe one day I would try to pick this one back up, but I do feel like this just confirms that I do enjoy Stephen Graham Jones' shorter versions of his writing than his longer novels after a couple tries now. Also, I went on Goodreads and was reading reviews for this book just to get a sense of other opinions, and there are people that really love this book, but a lot of people say it is definitely a slog to get through, and a lot of people recognize the similar feeling with Stephen Graham Jones novels where you just feel like you're going off on these tangents and you don't know why it's being dragged out so long, and it's such a slow burn, and sometimes you don't even know what you're reading, and so you have to read paragraphs more than once. That's not the most fun experience for me. Sometimes I can appreciate a book that really makes you slow down and spend a lot of time with it, and I might feel that way about this book eventually, but right now I just don't want to do that. I just want to have fun with my reading for this spooky season. And so yeah, I think I'm just gonna set this one down, but it's fine. There are still some Stephen Graham Jones novellas that I am interested in from his backlist, and then if he continues writing more of them, I'll for sure keep checking out the novellas too, because even like the first little prologue section of this book, I really liked that little prologue that was just following these characters that aren't part of the story. It was kind of like its own little tiny short story in itself leading into the book. I really liked that, and then as soon as we got into the novel portion, I was not loving it. So yeah, I'm just gonna stick to his shorter stuff. I think that is more where I belong. So that puts a wrap on this horror reading vlog. To sum it all up, I started with The Book of Accidents by Chuck Wendig and very much enjoyed this one. This one has a great set of characters. It has a really fun exploration of alternate dimensions or realities, and overall it was just really gripping. It kept me interested the whole time, even though this is a longer book. I really enjoyed this one. And then, like we just talked about, we tried My Heart is a Chainsaw, but it just wasn't gonna be for me. And then we finished with Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Khaw, which was a ton of fun, and I would definitely recommend this one. So let me know down below if you haven't read any of these books, what you think about them. Also, especially let me know what you think about My Heart is a Chainsaw. If you love it, I want to hear why you love it, because I want to be encouraged to pick this book back up again in the future. I just don't think it's gonna be for me right now, but what did you enjoy so much about this book? Let me know. But that is it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye.